In the conversation is a former governor of the Bank of Canada, Mark Carney. Many suspect that he is a frontrunner in the race to become the Prime Minister after Justin Trudeau. There are others up for consideration. There's a larger conversation on American tariffs and, of course, a conversation on when Canada indeed heads for elections, which are due sometime this year. Let's open up this conversation to perspective and information. From Terry Miluski is joining us. He's the former correspondent of the CBC and an author. He's based out of Ottawa. Mr. Miluski, thank you very much for taking out your time to speak with us. What is your assessment on who is tipped to be the next Prime Minister, sir?
Well, Mark Carney is certainly, according to the pollsters, the front runner. That's partly because of his own personal record, partly also because he's regarded by the Liberals, who will be the only people voting today on the new leadership. They regard him as the most likely to win the next election. Job one for the new leader is not just to take over the leadership and be Prime Minister for a week and be therefore the shortest running Prime Minister in Canadian history. No, the job one is to win the next election, which must happen before October. The Liberals are out of time, and so the first order of business will be to see Justin Trudeau step down. He will be replaced as leader. That leader will automatically then become the Prime Minister as the leader of the party with the most seats. And then we're off to the races. And I would assume that there will be an election call either end of April, say the 28th, or maybe beginning of May the 5th. After that, we're going to be looking at our watches and saying, hey, you've got to call an election soon. So get moving.
All right. Elections perhaps in springtime. But what then happens to Justin Trudeau? Do we simply assess that, all right, 10 years in the top job and too much anti-incumbency, too much on his plate, or was he genuinely becoming unpopular for other reasons?
Well, there's no question that he was already extremely unpopular. It's been getting worse and worse and worse. There does seem to be a tendency in Canadian politics, for one reason or another, for prime ministers to basically expire. They wear out their welcome as they get towards 10 years in office. This happened to Prime Minister Harper. It happened to Prime Minister Chrétien. It happened to Prime Minister Mulroney. You can go quite a ways back and find it's pretty hard to break 10 years. After that, the public gets sick of you and they have an opportunity, because they can get rid of a prime minister if they convince enough members of parliament of the ruling party to switch their allegiance. And that's what happened to Trudeau. They said, sorry, we're going to lose our jobs if we run another election with you as leader, so we're going to replace you. And nothing you can do about that.
There is a lot of anger, and I can understand where it comes from, over the rhetoric that is coming from the south of the border. And this seems to be bipartisan. All the political parties, governors, mayors are all sort of speaking in one voice. Has that affected the political climate in Canada? Has the subject changed from the issues of the carbon tax to inflation to property prices? Has it all become about standing up to the Americans?
Yes, it's absolutely changed the topic. I mean, the Liberals, I was just reading some articles from only a month and a half ago predicting without a shadow of a doubt that the Liberals were toast in the next election. They were 25 points behind the Conservatives. It was over when Trudeau quit on January 6th. And now, of course, the subject has changed from Trudeau, we're tired of him. The subject is now Trump, we're angry at him. Who's going to be the best leader to stand up to Trump? So the whole topic of the election has changed drastically, and what people are looking for now in the Liberal Party and elsewhere, apparently, according to the polls, is the best person to stand up to Trump and to fight him, go toe-to-toe with Trump, and to make sure that Canada's interests are defended in this trade war.
So how is this changing? Because the latest polls say that there has been a 10-point improvement for the Liberals, where they were languishing in the teens or early 20s. They have approval rating of 30. In most likely to win, the Conservatives are at 40. So there's only a 10-point difference. So where does this put Pierre Poilievre?
Well, it puts him in a bind. because in terms of the international problem, the problem with the big bully down south is that he can't do anything else but support the government. I mean, if he were to not support the government in this, that would be treachery, that would be an outrage. So there's very little room for him to differentiate himself from the Liberals, and it completely alters the contest for him as much as for anyone. Obviously, it alters it for Mark Carney if he becomes the new Liberal leader. But it's completely different now for Poilievre. The question, the ballot question, if you like, in Canada is going to be, who do you trust to go up against Trump? Is it going to be Mark Carney, international man of mystery, a master of economics, governor of the Bank of England and of Canada, spent 15, 16, 17 years at the top levels of global finance, or this career politician, Mr. Poilievre, who has been sailing along on what seem to be three-word slogans, according to the Liberals, like axe the tax, which is a reference to the carbon tax. Well, guess what? Mark Carney, since he ended his term of office as the governor of the Bank of England, became the UN Special Envoy for climate action, to try to yoke international finance to continuing to take global action on climate change. So there's another issue upon which the two will be divided as they go into the election. And it's by no means clear that Poilievre is not going to keep losing support in the polls as he has been over the past couple of weeks since this trade war erupted.
All right. We had the privilege of hosting former Prime Minister Stephen Harper just a few days ago, and when what he said on record was also very strong on what was happening in America and the positions which some can argue, sir, that they are rhetorical positions, that in the end, these are diplomatic sort of negotiating stances being taken, and the Trump administration is known to be high on rhetoric, but when it comes to substance, things will settle down in a few weeks. If they do, does it come back to inflation and other domestic issues, or is this going to be the frontline issue in the elections as you see it?
I think that even if at this point, even if the Trump administration declares that, okay, the waffling is over now, it's been off again, there's a pause, there's not a pause, even if they now declare that this time for real we're going to go through with it, I'm not sure people would entirely believe it until they see it. And if they say that they're going to stop it and they're going to end the trade war, people won't believe that either, because he said that before too. So it seems to me that this is likely to be a continuing issue throughout the year, and sometime in the course of this year, there has to be a federal election. So I don't think this is going to disappear as an issue, even if Trump says it must. I don't think he would go that far anyway. He's going to impose some tariffs. It may be well watered down, but he's going to impose some tariffs, and even if it's for no other reason other than to save his face. So I don't think this is going to disappear as an issue, and that helps the Liberals, hurts the Conservatives.
All right. Terry Milewski, thank you very much for joining us with your thoughts.